All right. Today, on the BizNode podcast, we have Saurabh Vij, who is the founder of Qblocks, um, which is a service that helps users access um, special purpose compute at a low cost. He has had an extensive background as a scientist. He's worked, in the IIT. He's worked in Curie Labs. He's worked, um, in GTI Labs. And this is so he's worked across the world as a scientist, and now he's made the transition to being a founder, which is a totally different hat. He's had his master's degree in nuclear plant design from Centrale Supplec, and yeah, it's gonna be. I think this is gonna be an interesting episode for all, because we don't see um, those who are in the academic scientific community make the jump to entrepreneurship. But when they do, it usually creates a lot of interesting outcomes. The most famous being Elon Musk, who famously quit his PhD in solid state physics to start Zip2, and then X.com, and then of course Tesla and SpaceX. So yeah, it's great to have you with us, Saurabh. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks, Pranesh, for inviting me here.
No, my
Thanks for the
pleasure.
introduction.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I quickly wanted to understand, how your service works. So when I sent the link to the service to one of my friends who's super curious about just all things computing, he was like, Pranesh, isn't Qblocks awfully similar to Google Colab? And I thought, hey, I think that'd be a pretty good question for Saurabh to answer. So Saurabh, how would you answer that question?
Sure. So I think I'll start with the overall context about what we do, and then we'll tackle the Google Colab thing. So fundamentally, what has happened over the past 15 years since the, you can say, launch of Amazon Web Services (AWS) is you have large data centers which invest billions of dollars in building up their inventory, which has CPUs to GPUs and very special purpose designed computing systems all over the world. Now, this inventory model actually revolutionized a lot of industries. Before AWS, it was actually difficult to scale. So if you are a startup or if you are running a small project and you need computing power, you would have without AWS, you would have to invest your own money in setting up those servers and infrastructure. And beyond cost, it's also about it's very challenging to do that. And then there are scaling limits. You can only house few servers in your garage. But if you want to scale up, you need a cloud service like that. But over the past few years now, what we have seen is that it's kind of a duopoly between AWS and Microsoft Azure. And because of that, it has become super expensive uh, for more than 30 million developers, designers, scientists like me, and engineers to get access to affordable computing. It is still very expensive. So, to give you an example, if you are a machine learning engineer and you want to train models, uh, and you want to rent out a GPU, a single average GPU on AWS would cost you around $2,500 per month. And one GPU often is not enough. So imagine, you're ambitious and you want to build a project like GPT-3, something cool like GPT-3 or Dolly 2. That requires thousands of GPUs at the same time for months. So your billing would cross $1 million like in 20 days. Now, this would create, would divide our world, you can say, in two categories: compute rich players and compute poor players. And the small guy, the brilliant innovator from Africa or from India, he can't compete with these companies. He can't come up with GPT-3 or could train his models or come up with Dolly 3, Dolly 4 kind of things. We want to help those people. So from my experience at CERN, where they found the Higgs boson, media called it by many different names like God particle. Now, doing this kind of research requires a lot of computing power. They had large server farms. They came up with a unique proposition that, hey, instead of building server farms after server farms, why don't we invite people from all over the world to donate computing power from their laptops? Our laptops are becoming incredibly powerful and they're idle most of the time. And not just laptop, our gaming systems like PlayStations, gaming PC, they're idle most of the time. What if they could compute for scientific organizations? So this was fascinating for me. And the idea was that this thing can actually help us in democratizing access to affordable computing. What if we can use it, bring this technology from scientific space to our commercial world, to help applications like machine learning, model training, 3D rendering, big data analytics, video transcoding, and many more. And based on that, we started with a simple, you can say, one use case: machine learning. And when it comes to machine learning, then from the surface, yes, it might look like Google Colab, because Google Colab is also providing computing power for machine learning developers. We are also providing computing power to machine learning developers. But the fundamental difference is they follow inventory model. They have invested billions of dollars in their data centers, and to avoid their wastage, because when you follow an inventory model, you will always have wastages if you are not able to generate enough demand. So to avoid that wastage and to lure a lot of young people into Google's cloud ecosystem, they gave it for free to some extent, but there are limits, and it's very frustrating. So if you're a really like a beginner, it's okay, because they give you 12 hours of computing. But if you're really doing some serious work, if you're a professional, you need something which doesn't break, something which has no limits, and something which is more affordable. So we have designed that for machine learning engineers. And fundamentally, the difference is Collab follows inventory model, we follow marketplace model. So we don't own a lot of inventory. So this is like Airbnb. There are providers like crypto miners and gamers who have powerful GPUs in their systems. Our software abstracts that computing power and optimizes it to let a machine learning developer run their algorithms and train their models on these systems. This way, we are able to deliver 5 times better price performance. Like you can save 80% instantly. And with this kind of approach, the idea is that we can have more engineers and developers get access to affordable computing.
Yeah. Oh, so first of all, I didn't know you worked at CERN. I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. That that's interesting. When did this project to donate compute happen, by the way?
I think they started as early as 2005, 2006.
2005.
The project is LHC at home.
So sorry, could you say that again?
LHC at home. It is similar to SATI at home, folding at home.
Understood. Okay. And what did the pilot product of this program look like?
So they created a simple application. You can download that in your laptop.
Okay.
And it will take up few codes from your computer, and it will process data for CERN and other scientific organizations.
Huh. Have you seen the show Silicon Valley?
Yes.
You finished the entire have you finished the entire series?
No, unfortunately.
No. Because
last season, I couldn't. Yeah,
you couldn't get to last season. Okay, yeah. So you've seen enough, because in that they basically what you're saying, and like what your business model is, it's exactly like that. Because their business model is
yeah,
it's the same thing. So like this is kind of blowing my mind that like this. First of all, the fact that CERN did this in 2005, and the fact that you're actually like building a commercial entity based on this, which seemed like a pipe dream in this TV show. So that's awesome. So you mentioned that like your service doesn't break relative to something like AWS, Azure, GCP. Now, without breaking too much info about like your technical infrastructure, obviously I don't want you to do that. But what is the mindset? Like what is it that what how are you thinking about creating a product that doesn't break for machine learning engineers? How is that? How are you planning? How does the product development thought process look like for that to optimize for stability?
So when we started out, we So we understood that the entire, you can say, market in three major categories. So you have your beginners, like real students. Then you have on this side large enterprise customers,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a big middle. Now what happens is when you're a beginner or a student, you can start learning things with with very cheap or free services like Google Colab, or you might even train on your local laptop, which is very slow, incredibly slow, painfully slow.
Yeah.
On the large enterprise side, that's where the big battle is between AWS, GCP, Microsoft Azure of the world. They want projects like Pentagon, CIA.
Yeah.
That's where they're fighting. But the big middle, startups, SMEs, professionals. So let's say you're a data scientist, you're a professional, or just like me. What happened to me was when I switched gears towards entrepreneurship, when I left my scientific career, and let's say I want to simulate something, I want to do an experiment. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any other option, other than AWS.
Mm-hmm.
And to do a very basic thing would cost me thousands of dollars every single month. So it's
Okay.
very difficult for a professional to really advance their career
Right.
if they rely on these traditional platforms. So we designed our service for the mid, you can say mid segment, where you have professionals, more than 5 million machine learning engineers,
Wow.
SMEs, startups who are looking for affordable as
Huh.
well as reliable service.
Huh.
We performed more than 100 customer interviews. So just one information, like 2 years back, we got it to Techstars, and that really helped us, in really going deep and understanding customers. So because when we started with this idea, it was more about generic computing, but we understood that it's better if we specialize and really target it, or you can say help a very specific segment first. So we started with machine learning. Gaurav, who's my brother and also co-founder, he's a machine learning expert, and he has faced a similar issue in his previous startup. So we, collaborated on this project and then company, and focused you can say, became laser focused and build it for machine learning engineers and SMEs. And when we performed those customer interviews, one of the biggest things that came up was, other than affordability, they need reliability, they need fault tolerance and scale. So keeping that in perspective, we designed everything.
What does can you explain what those parameters mean? Like what is fault tolerance, and
So I'll give
yeah.
you an example.
Yeah.
Recently, I think 3 months back, GCP's data center in some region went down.
Yeah.
Because of that, Discord and Spotify went down.
Correct. Yes.
For none of their fault. For none of
Yeah.
their fault, right?
Yeah.
Now, what we are trying to do is, in the decentralized domain, when something like that happen, because it's electronics, these things fail. Outages will happen. So our system should be robust enough that whenever a failure occurs, you'll get a new node in real time. So all your data and algorithm would be shifted to a new node to add in redundancy. So you don't face outages. So imagine there are thousands of nodes which will take care of the outages this way. So it's a fault tolerance mechanism which we have designed that takes care of any outages or downtimes.
Wow. So if you actually end up becoming like a scaled player, that would become like a bigger point of differentiation. Like that should set you apart. Wow. I didn't think that it was actually possible to create a system where like outages could be prevented. I just thought like, I mean, it's cloud, like, I just sort of assumed that like it couldn't be fixed, but it's actually interesting to hear from you that, it is possible to fix. What is the most interesting experience you've had in terms of customer interactions, or just in terms of trying to close like a deal or something, like a sales deal? Like what's been your most interesting interaction?
Oh, that's interesting. There has been a few. One of the, I would say, interesting ones is I can't take the name of the
No, of
brand
course.
that
Yeah.
has been using it. So interestingly, being a startup and being decentralized and everything, such a new thing that we thought that we should avoid few industries like healthcare, like because it's healthcare data is very important.
Yeah.
And
Compliance risk. Yep.
those industries, in fact, avoided cloud for the longest period.
Correct.
They,
Yep.
in fact, there are a few other industries also who still are not on cloud. Actually, COVID forced them because of remote work and everything. So we never imagined that they would actually be. So there were two interesting insights. One, we never imagined that they would go to cloud like us, which is a completely new thing. Second is, we never imagined that they would be using machine learning in such a heavy manner. And some of them are using at least more than 1 million minutes of computing every single month. So when we started talking to them, they were like, we face this issue every single day. We need them. So they were skeptical. So what happens is, there is a senior guy, and then there's a innovator in every company. The job of a senior guy is to block the innovation of the innovator. That's what we have seen. So innovator would introduce us, and the senior guy, the all serious guy, would be like, hey, we can't take this risk. So we then converted our entire pitch around finances, because
around what, sorry?
Around finances.
Okay.
Exactly. So instead of talking about decentralization, about CERN, about folding at home kind of projects, or the innovation, we started talking about how much savings it would be for you. And that's a big lesson for us as founders and as entrepreneurs, that we have to change our pitch according to the person that's in front of us. So when we are talking to another founder or another business person, it's better that we talk about value proposition. When you're talking about machine learning, we can talk for hours, about the stuff that we're building.
I think first of all, that's very funny, because you're like, you know what, I'm gonna seduce him based on the expense line instead of our technology. And I think this is a good off point to ask, what was it like? What was that time frame when you were like, you know what, I love my scientific career, but I'm going to make a transition to building. What happened? What's the story behind that? Because that's super interesting, especially because you didn't do like a PhD program and like quit. You were actually a scientist. So
it was super interesting, as well as super difficult, I would say.
I can imagine.
So my biggest passion in life, I would say my first love is physics. Energy, particle physics. I just love it.
I could tell, by the way, there's like a big, is that a telescope behind you?
Wait,
yeah. I was like, this man's a real scientist.
I gifted this to myself on my wife's birthday. So I said, okay, I got a telescope for you. I don't know if you care about that or not, but I'm gifting it to you so that I can use it.
That's smart. That's smart.
That's how I got this.
That's smart. That's very smart. Yeah, but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So I always followed that passion, and that's the advice that I give to everyone in my circle, that if you want to do anything meaningful in your life, you'll have to stick with it for the long term. And the only way you can stick with something is you actually love it. So I followed that, and that led me to a path of academia, of real, cutting edge, you can say, physics. Come from a very like middle class background, and never imagined I would be able to I would ever get an opportunity to work there. But after a few years, what I realized was, in the world of physics, especially if you're at the cross section of theoretical and experimental physics, it can take at least, let's say, 20 years to see the impact of your work. And sometimes you don't even see that. And something switched in me those days. I was becoming more problem focused. I wanted to solve real problems that would actually have an impact on tomorrow. Like that's how, I don't know, something happened. So and then it was like around Nirbhaya. I don't know if you know about this, in India, 2012.
Oh yeah, the Nirbhaya incident. Oh God, that was terrible.
So that was actually the trigger point in my life.
Really?
That was a very painful problem. I wanted to solve that, and I felt actually ashamed to an extent that I'm a scientist, and we live in 21st century. Why can't we still solve this problem with technology? Why don't we have to even rely on any external entity like lawmakers?
Sorry to cut you off, but just for those who are listening, I would So the Nirbhaya incident was essentially a woman was raped in Delhi very brutally. I'm uncomfortable even like saying it. Yeah, it was pretty grotesque, and it shocked India for a year, and it still continues to shock India. So it was a pretty terrible incident. For those of you who don't know, I would suggest checking out a documentary or something about it. It was pretty terrible. Um, but yeah, sorry, please continue. My bad.
And rape, women's safety, these were actually generally very big issues in India. But Nirbhaya, I would say, was a trigger point for a lot
Mhm.
of people like me who
Yeah.
really wanted to take things, in their hands and do something about it in whatever manner they could. So I come from the scientific background. I wanted to solve this using technology. So I and this was like way before Apple Watch and all those things. So the idea was, let's build a small wearable device like that you can put inside your pendant, bracelet, or a watch, and it would have a small miniaturized GPS in it. You can have a SIM card. You press
Mhm.
a button, it will send you most accurate GPS location to
Mhm.
friends, family, local authorities, and everyone. So
Mhm.
that was the concept. Then we got in with this project. I got into IIT Delhi. I left my PhD at this point. Uh, this was the most, you can say, powerful emotional trigger for me. That's how
Mhm.
I jumped from scientific domain to entrepreneurship
Mhm.
after this. So to solve this, we had to. It's a very long story. I'll just cut it short. So to solve this, we had to build this product, and it was way before Apple Watch. Miniaturization of these units like GPS, SIM card, all of that was very difficult at that time, and we needed some grants to do that. So we pitched a lot of professors. Around 41 professors rejected me. Then one professor at IIT Delhi, he was convinced, he really wanted to work on this. He helped us in getting a grant. Then at
Wow.
IIT Delhi, we developed this product for like 2 years. Then we commercialized it, and then an artificial jewelry company, they acquired us with
Okay.
with a vision that our technology, like it was a small unit, and their artificial jewelry will
Okay.
sell it as smart jewelry so that we
Okay.
can really reach the customer, because we come from engineering and scientific background. It's
Right.
very, that was another lesson for me. That technology in itself is not enough. We need to put customer at the center
Yeah.
and understand the nuances, the way it has to be delivered. So
Right.
that's where that company came in, and they delivered it in the form of smart jewelry, very beautiful bracelets, pendants, and everything.
Yeah. And wow, that's yeah, powerful. Yeah, I don't know, that is making me think a little bit. And I have to ask, what is the biggest sort of, apart from like being customer focused, because as as a scientific type, you're trained to be technology focused, sort of scientific advancement focused. Is there anything, any was there any part of it, any other part of, like, just in terms of learning, that was more difficult, like accounting, or sales or something? Like, is there something that was really shocking to you in terms of the learning curve?
Many things actually. There's so many lessons, I would say.
But is
But
there anything that stood out? Yeah.
uh, so now I've made it a principle in my life from all those learnings.
Hmm.
So what happens is, I'm assuming most of your audience are engineers, young engineers who might want to enter the world of entrepreneurship. So
Fair.
what happens is, when we come from that perspective, we ourselves get so excited and fascinated with the product ideas, with features, with innovation, that we sometimes forget about other important parts. Like one of them is starting from the customer.
Yeah.
That's really important. That was the biggest lesson I got from my first startup.
Hmm.
Second is the principle now that I hold very close to my heart is, unless you are developing a nuclear fusion reactor or a reusable rocket, focus on distribution first, because your product will change. And most of the products, especially the digital products or software products,
Right.
are not that complex or not that difficult. You can make them. They're not in the zone of impossible. They're
Yeah.
in the zone of possible. With a small dedicated team, you can build a
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
So because unless if we keep two things out of this,
Hmm.
reusable rocket or nuclear fusion. So unless you're doing that, most of the products can be built. So
Yeah.
start with distribution at the center. So
Yeah.
even before writing first line of code, think about three things. Who is my customer in details? You should have at least 20 parameters to define your customer. Age, ethnicity, where does he live, what his priorities, value systems, and everything. Second is about distribution channels. It's very important because sometimes it's not even product market fit, it's product distribution fit. There are so many distribution channels which might not work with the initial version of your product. So you might have to modify your product to work for a specific distribution channel.
Right.
Third learning is, if I can categorize most of the startups in three categories. One is the value system. The values around: are you saving them time? Are you speeding things up? Like Superhuman saves your time. Second, are you saving them money? We come in this category. We help consumers, like our users, save money. Third is, are you making them money? So if you look at our host or host on Airbnb, you're helping them make money. So if you can look at your startup ideas or product ideas from this lens, from these three categories: am I saving someone's time? Am I saving money? Or am I helping someone accelerate their revenues or make more money? This way, this framework with your product idea, if they're aligned, it could really go far.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, so just this is like a more practical question. How so there is this belief that you need a lot of cash to build something in hard tech, and this is what you're doing is essentially a software that facilitates you know people with excess compute to give it to people that want to pay for it and can't access it cheaply. Like, that's software, but that's still pretty difficult. Like, what is your framework around that? Like, if I were to like go build something difficult, like how would you think about creating or showing evidence that your fundamental principle holds true to an investor or something? Because that I think is pretty poorly understood. If you could just touch base on that.
Yeah, especially for deep tech, it actually depends, about the core team, I would say, and how much patience you have. And patience in our world comes with capital. So let's say you want to build GPT-4, like something like that. So other than the computing cost, you need some of the most brilliant minds on the planet. Now, why would they work for you? Theoretically, a lot of people would say that, hey, you can give them equity, but that's not the truth. If there is someone who with 15 years of experience in AI and he was working at Google, he's not going to leave Google just for your idea or just for your equity. People need hard cash. So so one way, and a lot of deep tech companies, if the founding team comes from a strong track record, so let's say you are someone who built a company, sold a company for like 50 million to 100 million exit, and you got some good you can say ROI for your previous investors. Now you have a track record. Now when you want to do deep tech, you can have $5 million on day one with the investors. But if you don't have a track record, I would say from my own personal experience, I would suggest to break down the entire your journey into tiniest step and take the most simple service that you can offer today. I think the perfect analogy would be Netflix. Netflix started with a very clear vision that one day we want to stream videos on the internet or movies on the internet, let's say. They started with that dream, but they knew that technology is not there, and to really push it, they would need a lot more capital, resources, and experimentation to bring that forth. So what did they do? They did not stop there. They broke down their entire journey into very simple services, and they started with the most simple of them, DVD rental business. They created that DVD rental business. They created the flywheel of demand and supply. And once and every 3 years, they came up with the streaming service. It failed. It failed for 3 or 4 times at least before we got the Netflix we have today. So I think I would really recommend this to a lot of young entrepreneurs. If you don't have a track record, and if you have a complex idea, break it down and come up with the most simple service, launch it in the market, and then get some revenue, some traction, some proof points, and then start talking to investors.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So what you mentioned is super great, because what you're saying is don't focus on raising initially, create some sort of evidence.
And this thing, I just want to add another point.
Yeah.
This thing would become incredibly important for the next 2 years, because either we are in recession, or we are just there. We are getting a recession this year, and generally they last for at least 2 years. So what happens is the entire VC, or you can say the VC world, was undisciplined for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Now they're all becoming disciplined, and by discipline I mean they're looking for quality companies, quality startups, and quality, I would say, the function of founding team and some traction, revenues, and evidence.
Oh, that was a hot take. That was a hot take. I didn't say it. You said it.
That's the truth. You can't ignore the truth. That's
it is the truth. It is the truth. I mean, I had this other gentleman who was the GP of this venture capital firm in my previous episode, and the same thing came up. It's funny. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and absolutely, we're going to go into a recession like by December, or December to March, like that time frame for sure. So yeah, absolutely, like having like being like super high quality does matter. I 100% agree. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit and ask you, you mentioned that your co-founder is your brother. What is that like? What is the pros, what is the cons of working with your brother, especially at the co-founder level?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love it, like because we we have jammed on many different things from childhood, and we, from physics to AI to movies, we discuss everything. And yeah, in fact, at some point we were writing a science fiction book also together.
Wow.
So there are many pros to it. The number one, other than fun, there is a lot of fun. Other than that, it's about trust, you can say. Trust is really, really, really important. The con would be, sometimes we all have our blind spots, and with your siblings, you tend to get soft, and you tend to ignore those blind spots. We all have them. So to avoid that, we periodically do this. So like every 15 days or at least a month, we sit down and figure out all the mistakes that we have made. This way we can cover up those blind spots. Those are some of the cons.
So this is so what do you mean? Like, is this like how does this work? Do you guys like get like a bottle of wine, and once a month, do you like is this like how does this work? By the way, like, you think I'm joking, but that's basically what the co-founders of Workday do, apparently. Like, they just every month they meet and they get a bottle of wine and they discuss through all the issues. It is a thing. It is shocking, but it seems to be the thing. Is that what you guys do? How does it work? What does it look like?
Yeah. So we are not, I would say, drinkers. So it's not about.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend.
No, it's fine. It's
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I don't get offended.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's about being brutally honest. Yeah. That's the thing. So we sit together, and then let's say we had a few goals we did not achieve. Then we introspect why we did not achieve, and who was the chief responsible officer for this specific task or specific milestone. Why it did not happen. We perform a 5 why kind of analysis on every single thing.
What's a 5 why analysis?
So it's, I think Japanese came up with this. So
okay.
And so the philosophy is, if something failed, sometimes you can figure out the root level, not the root level, at the surface level you can figure out the causes. But if you just ask why 5 times, like why this happened, why this happened, why this failed, why this one failed, you would get to you would get 2 kind of insights. One is the root cause, sometimes it's singular, but
Mhm.
a lot of times these are interconnected things.
Yeah.
Okay, this framework uh, was not compatible with another framework. That's
Yeah.
why this one failed, this worked. So
Yeah.
sometimes when you go 5 layers down,
Yeah.
you can see this interconnectedness and the root cause behind that.
Yeah.
So we perform this kind of analysis, and then we figure out that, okay, whose fault was it? We need to accept responsibility. That's about being brutally honest. That, okay, I failed, you failed. How do we improve this?
Mhm.
How can I help you to improve
Mhm.
this area? How can you help me improve this area? This is your blind spot. This is my blind spot.
Mm.
So we kind
Mm.
of become very robotic in that conversation.
But okay, that's interesting. But what do you guys usually do? Do you like grab dinner or something? How does this work?
For the past, you can say 1.5 years, we have been working remote. So we
Okay.
do it over Zoom. But earlier,
Okay.
yeah, earlier it was about dinner and everything,
Yeah,
yeah, things
dinner
like
and
that.
everything. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Um, how does, and again, shifting gears again, um, how does messaging communications work for a company like yours? Because you're still building and like you're super low key, but you must be like thinking of future plans of like, when we get to like this like revenue milestone, you don't have to share, but when you get to like a certain revenue milestone, you're going to reinvest some of that cash flow into messaging, marketing, and so forth. So
Mm.
what do you think that looks like for your company?
So we follow single KPI that we are super focused on, which is because our billing model is per minute billing of computing. So we are focused on how many computing minutes were actually used
Mhm.
by our users on the network.
Mhm.
So we follow that KPI with a lot of obsession, and today we are at 20 million minutes, which have been utilized on the platform. Now, to do that, initially we performed, like you can say, we have not invested a lot in marketing so far, but
Mhm.
most of that has been, very focused and very narrow on targeted groups and communities on Discord, on Reddit, on Kaggle communities, things like that. So
What
uh,
communities,
so
sorry?
Kaggle, so like Kaggle is one of the biggest,
Oh,
like
Kaggle,
a
the
platform.
data science thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Cool.
yes.
Yeah.
So Hugging Face is another, community. So we
Mm-hmm.
are very community, you can say, focused when it comes to
Mm,
messaging and
mm,
marketing.
mm. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. How do you think that'll change uh once you 10x? Because I mean, how will
Yeah,
that change? Like
yeah,
how would your resource allocation change? Because currently it's probably like, you know, you're probably super hands-on with, which community you pick to approach and what sort of community engagement you do. But how does that change once like your 10 exercise that you are? Like, do you hire like a head of marketing? What do you think that looks like?
yeah. So from the marketing perspective, I would say it's about two things. One is going super narrow, and one is about general awareness. So even right now, there could be at least 1,000 founders who could use us, for their startups, but they don't know about us.
Mhm.
So we would definitely need to invest there so that they know that yes, there is an alternative to AWS and GCP and then Microsoft Azure, and this alternative can save them money today.
Mhm.
So that's one, and we have not invested in that. So that's one area. Second is going really deep in more of these targeted communities. So because there are 5 million machine learning engineers that we want to reach,
Mhm.
and the best way in our world today
Mhm.
is, through expertise. People respect expertise. People respect, those influencers. So Kaggle grandmasters, and these kind of influencers. And this has actually also worked for us in the past. We performed few influencer marketing campaigns with Kaggle grandmasters. So Kaggle grandmasters are like Elon Musk of this space. When they say something, their audience listen. When they demo a product, their audience would sign up for the product.
Mhm.
So we would heavily go in this direction, along with, a lot of tooling, so that we can make the job of a machine learning engineer really very easy. To
Mhm.
give you the perfect example, You know about this company called as Copy.ai.
Yeah, copy.ai. Yeah, it's yeah.
So
The
they
the
offer
marketing
copywriting
copy
service.
platform, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, just making sure.
So an AI is writing copy for you.
Mhm.
This thing was not even possible 5 years back, right?
Correct.
Or 3, 4 years back. And if
Correct.
you, let's say, wanted to do this, let's say you're a copywriting service and you wanted to build an AI that can write copy for you or
Mhm.
for your customers,
Mhm.
you would need to have an army of machine learning engineers, DevOps engineers, network guys, people who understand cloud and all of that, right?
Mhm.
Copy.ai was able to do that with a very small team
Mhm.
because of GPT-3. GPT-3 came up with a very interesting thing. They did not just offer, their AI in a generic form, or they did not just give the computing infra behind it. They just gave an API that you can
Mhm.
integrate and kickstart your service tomorrow.
Mhm.
So that's how we want to evolve, so that you don't even have to think about your infrastructure. So what happens today is, uh, you go to AWS or you come to our platform, you look for a specific GPU type. Tomorrow, the way we want to evolve this is, you just take our API and integrate. All
Yeah.
the backend infrastructure and complexity of that is taken care of by our platform.
So to surmise your sorry to summarize your goal is to become the default layer of abstraction for those in the scientific computing community.
Not just scientific. I would say the focus for next 3 to 5 years is machine learning. But
Machine
you
learning.
got the other part. You got the other part right. You want to become the default abstraction layer for compute.
Okay. Okay. And how do you think about raising capital? In fact, the reason why we're on this podcast today is you made this joke that, like, all these things got funded, whereas we're like a hard tech that has, like, revenues, and then we're like trying to get funded, and it's like, not happening quickly. Like, what's your opinion on, like, how you think about raising capital, thinking about burn rate, and also what type of investors you want in your team, because they will ultimately, like, if they're smart enough, they'll ask for a board position or something, or they'll at least have like board oversight in an observer capacity at least. So, like, can you just like share your opinions on those two things?
Definitely, we don't want someone with, like, someone who would be a passive investor. We would definitely need someone who takes a position as a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say partner, it's about coming up with not just capital value, but from the skill perspective also. And the kind
Mm-hmm.
of skill we are looking for is, specific. If I get specific, it's about scaling. So scaling a tech product and then
Mm-hmm.
scaling the organization behind it is
Mm-hmm.
a very unique skill, and very few people have actually experienced this. Scaling a company from 5 employees to 5,000 employees, or scaling a company from, let's say, 1 million API hits to a billion API hits. That's a very unique experience, and very few people have that. So someone like that, would be the great fit. Or that's one area. Or you can say someone who have done a similar thing here. So if my target here is Professor Vijay Pandey, if he's listening to this podcast. Professor Vijay Pandey is the pioneer behind folding at home. So he changed the world. I would say folding at home is a great, one of the best things that happened to humanity. It's, in fact, when COVID happened, they created a protocol through which even crypto miners could donate computing to their project. So Professor Vijay Pandey, someone like him would be. I admire him. I respect him. So someone like him would be a great add on. Uh, and yeah.
And can you just comment on how you think about, like, which is my first question, which is, how do you think about, like, financial planning, like, sort of planning for your burn rate for the next, 12 months, 24 months? How do you think about that, from the context of, like, are you optimizing to raise some money? Are you not optimizing to raise for money? Like, how do you have those discussions, and, like, how does that planning process occur in your company? Because if
So
you
we
have the
have cut
assumption
down.
of, yeah, sorry, go on, my bad.
Yeah, I'm going with the assumption that recession will happen this year, or we are
Yeah.
already in the recession. So
Yeah.
we are cutting down on everything and going back to like essentials. Although we were very lean earlier also, but
Hmm.
now we are cutting down everything and we are going super narrow. Like
Okay.
I said, from the marketing standpoint, also we don't spend on general marketing or even on SEO kind of
Hmm.
things. We are
Yeah.
very like a community driven, community focused, and that actually helps. The CAC to LTV ratios are really powerful when we are when you go very narrow with community driven
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah.
So we would invest in those areas, and we are cutting down on a lot of other areas which are good to have, but they're not essentials. And that's what I expect actually in the market also.
Hmm.
Everything will go back to the essentials.
Okay. And what do you, I mean, without getting into specifics, because we don't want, we don't want you to expose your financials or something, that wouldn't be nice. But what, roughly, like, is it like a 50% reduction in expenses, 40%? Just give us a range.
In our I would say company, we have already gone down, like we have cut down everything by 40-45%,
40,
and we
45%.
will make more cuts without
Okay.
hiring, sorry, without firing anyone.
Okay.
It's all about like killing different projects and you can
Yeah.
say campaigns,
Yeah.
and we've killed those things, but yeah,
Yeah.
we've not
It's
fired
okay.
anyone.
Just shrinking, like, sort of the expense line, basically.
On the marketing campaign side, on the tooling
Marketing.
side, on different projects that we are building for.
Okay. Cool. And when did you start this cost cutting process?
I think 4 months back.
Oh wow. Okay. So you started early.
Yeah, actually, I'm a big fan of, I would say, Ray Dalio. So, Ray Dalio.
Of course. And for those who don't know, he's the former chief investment officer of Bridgewater Associates, which is one of the world's largest hedge funds, based out of Greenwich, Connecticut. Sorry, Bridgeport, Connecticut. And they have like like $150 billion in assets. They are known for their all-weather hedge fund strategy, which is supposed to do well in all sort of market conditions. Anyway, that's who Sarbis Garb is talking about. So yeah.
Yeah, and so I follow him. I read everything he writes,
Yeah.
and so he started anticipating all of this like in December.
Yeah.
And so, and when you look at his theory, it makes sense. If the, all his theories and
Yeah.
the frameworks that he used to take a decision and everything.
Yeah. No, he's I have you read Principles, by the way? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know on, okay, this is just a question for myself. This is not for the podcast at all. But like, is like, what is there, how would you read the Principles book? Because I think there's a technique to reading every book. How would you read Principles?
Skip the first half.
Skip
That's
the first half. Okay.
because it's more about uh, his life
Okay.
mostly. The first half is mostly about his life. So I was not really interested in that,
Hmm.
honestly, but I was interested in the frameworks that he
Sure.
shared within the book. So start with and you won't miss much. So start with the second part. It's really good. It has
Okay.
all the frameworks, decision making criteria that he uses, how he
Okay.
came up, what's the holy grail, and I would say the
Okay.
number one thing is the mindset of mastery.
Hmm.
That's really important. This guy had one goal. He wanted to reach the, you can say, holy grail of financing. That
Hmm.
could there be a all-weather kind of framework
Yeah.
where you, even in the worst case scenario, you don't lose anything kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So, and all his life he has been driven by that. So I like these kind of people, who are who are masters of their field.
Yeah. Of course.
And I think Elon Musk is God. Then after
Yeah.
that, in humans,
Yeah.
he's at the top.
Yeah. Well, I think he and Dalio are kind of different, because Dalio,
Yeah.
I think he's achieved like every anyone who's been interested in finances like dream, which is essentially like um to deliver the best risk adjusted returns at any given time, which is really, 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 really fucking hard. Like really, really hard. Like no one appreciates it. I don't. I mean, there's a lot of like chatter around like, oh, like investing's fun. It is fun, but it is not remotely easy. It takes, like, even the greats, they take like 2 decades to like really come into their own. And Dalio took time. Like that's the thing about Dalio
Yeah.
that no one appreciates. His first attempt at a fund essentially blew up after the
Yeah.
Mexico crisis. And then he came back out strong and was one of the few funds that did really, really well during the financial crisis. So interesting. That's pretty interesting. Uh, you know, um, how do you think about your, like, vendor relationships? How did that work? Because for this to work, you know, you have to get people with excess capacity first, right? Like, or not, did you just build the community first? How did that work? Like, did you get the capacity first, or did you get the community first? And if so,
It
like,
was a
what was the process?
good problem. Yeah, it was kind of like the typical classic chicken and egg
Chicken and
problem.
egg problem.
That
Yep.
first I get supply or first I get the user. So
Yep.
this came up. So the way we solved this is, like I mentioned, we took around more than 100 customer interviews. So that was a part of that was on both the sides. So we interviewed, crypto miners first,
Yeah.
uh, and we understood their problem. They all, yes, definitely want better ROI, but
Mm-hmm.
there are nuanced problems also. One of the
Mm-hmm.
big thing is, in so many countries there are regulatory issues.
Yeah.
So let's say you are in India, China, or so many countries, you don't know you
Mm-hmm.
that is it even legal to do crypto mining.
Yeah.
It still lies in the gray area, so they're
Yeah.
always under that fear.
Yeah.
And second is, in the crypto mining space, there is a number or a parameter called as mining difficulty, which is
Okay.
a function of hash rate. So this
Okay.
mining difficulty is increasing so fast that the infrastructure you have today would
Mm-hmm.
become kind of unprofitable or
Mm-hmm.
useless in 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's even 8 months. So they are
Right.
always like catching up.
Right.
So let's say you invested $20,000
Mm-hmm.
and built an infra for mining Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
In 10 months, you have to upgrade your system or you can't do much.
Mm-hmm.
It will become unprofitable. But
Mm-hmm.
the interesting, so this was a nuance, insight we got.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we understood that that the GPU that they have in their
Mm-hmm.
system is
Mm-hmm.
good enough for next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the same infrastructure, you don't have to upgrade your infra every 10 months and be in this rat race.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make money in fiat. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with all the complexities and regulatory problems,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get better ROI. So they
Huh.
get three value offerings from us: better ROI,
Right.
they earn in fiat,
Right.
in dollars or their native currency, and third is, it increases the shelf life of their infrastructure. So
Wow.
with this value proposition, we took up some inventory. To
Mm.
solve the chicken and egg, we invested in some inventory that, okay, I'm taking your machine for, let's
Mm.
say, for next 2 months,
Mm, mm,
and
mm.
we use that to perform free trials. So we
So you see,
perform free
essentially you
trials.
you you created, like, you set up, like, compute, like you bought compute, and then, like, actually, like, tested the platform by, like,
Exactly.
buying GPUs and stuff. Okay, cool.
No. We So it was not physical. So let's say, I'm in Canada, you are in, let's say, San Jose right now, and you are a
Okay.
crypto miner. You
Yeah.
just need to download our software,
Right.
and I'm renting your machine basically for a
No,
month.
no, sure, sure, sure. But I'm talking about, no, I got that part. But, like, initially speaking, like, did you ever, like, buy a GPU just to, did you use yourself as, like, the excess capacity, basically, is what I'm asking. Do you
We
know what I'm saying?
experimented, but we never, yeah, at a physical level you are
Yeah,
asking.
yeah. Did you ever, like, buy a GPU just in the initial phases, just to test the platform? Did you
We
go,
did.
like, yeah, like, did you buy, like, a GPU, you hosted it,
We
and then
built our
someone bought it, or no?
we built our own crypto mining rig, and
Yeah,
we tested that with our software that it could automatically switch between
right.
mining and computing and all of that. So
Okay,
after those experimentation, we onboarded those crypto miners first,
got it.
and
Yep.
using that we gave free trials and then kicked off the flywheel.
Okay, that's what I was trying to say. Sorry, I forgot the phrase crypto mining. Like, I apologize, but you got me there. Um, uh, I guess one last question. What what does Like, what does Q-Blocks look like once it's like fulfilled its mission? Like, what does it look like? For example, like Tesla is close to fulfilling its mission of accelerating like electric mobility, and you can see that in a number of cars they're shipping every year. So what, is there like a big like dream goal that you have, like, 1 billion compute minutes will be sold or something, like, is there a
There are, I would say, yes. So we can quantify that in numbers,
Mhm.
or we can come at it from the emotional perspective. So
Sure, whichever.
I'll talk about both. So yeah, so if we talk about numbers, yes, we so far we are at 20 million computing minutes. So the dream would be to reach a trillion minutes
Trillion
on the
minutes.
platform.
Okay.
That's the number from the number
Okay.
perspective. But from the impact perspective, the best thing that can happen is that there's a brilliant innovator right now in Nigeria, and he
Okay.
can get a supercomputer for $5. That's what
Right.
we want to achieve. That
Right.
there's a brilliant innovator, maybe in physics. That's my first love. Maybe in genomics, and he wants to come up with a solution for, let's say, cancer, and he
Mhm.
wants to test out his theories and simulate. He can get a supercomputer in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, for like $5.
Right.
That's the biggest impact we
And
can have, because these people are outside the system.
okay. No, yeah, absolutely. And sorry, if that happens, uh like currently the cost reduction you're offering is a 5x cost reduction, right?
If we
So
add in everything, it's around 10x. But yeah,
10.
just number to number, it's 5x.
Okay, sorry, what do you mean, like, if you add everything? I don't understand.
So we don't sell raw computing power only. So if you're a
Okay.
machine learning developer, you
Uh-huh.
need a lot more things. You need frameworks, you need CUDA libraries, GPU drivers, Jupyter Lab, distributed training support. All
Yeah.
of those things would cost you additional, on other cloud
And you
platforms, or you
offer
have
that?
to as a package. Yes.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't understand this. Can you please explain how your product is, like the packaging of your product, like, because I didn't understand this. Can you just explain like what all is
So
offered?
let's say you're a machine learning engineer and you
Mm-hmm.
go to AWS. Now,
Mm-hmm.
first you have to, you have to figure out, out of that ocean of instances like P3X large and whatnot. Their nomenclature is very difficult. You have to
Yeah,
go through a training exercise to just to get get an
that is
understanding of
true.
that. That
That is
wastes a
true.
lot of time.
That is true.
And
Yeah.
then you have to set up those instances. You need
Yeah.
to have you need to containerize them, but you need to add your containers. Then you need to add different frameworks, AI frameworks, like from PyTorch to many others, Keras. And then you have to set up CUDA libraries, GPU drivers. These things, a lot of them are open source. So the problem is they tend to become incompatible with each other. Now, typically, when you're setting up an instance, you waste a lot of time in setting these things up and to make them work together with your GPU. So with us, you get all these things pre-configured. So you can launch an instance in under a minute, compared to wasting hours on on regular cloud for setting up all these things.
Oh wow. I'm sorry I didn't pick up on that earlier. That Yeah, then I see why this is like a 10x, because you save them a lot of time, and like if you translate like time savings into dollars, then yeah, I can see why that's a
Exactly.
10x.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And there are a
Uh,
few optimizations and compression algorithms that I can't reveal right now, but we are working on them
sure.
that would lead this to at least 30 to 40x better results. We have some
Huh.
benchmarks in our you can say lab right now. We experiment with them. So far the results are fascinating. We are at least at 25x difference, and we would be launching that service, I think, in 6 months, where the difference would be substantial.
Huh. That's interesting. Wow. Um, and you do you mind touching base on, like, you know what how big do you think your company will have to be? Like, have you ever thought about, like at this scale, this is how many people we need to like fulfill our current capacity? Like, have you ever just for the fun of it just thought about like the math of scaling this to peak, like, and what that company structure would look like, how many people you'd hire and so forth?
So we have started with crypto miners today, but we down the line we want to have gamers. There are more than 100 million PlayStations and Xboxes out there,
Okay.
and generally you use them, maximum for 4 hours or 5 hours, and after that it's like sitting idle. That could be utilized for so many different use cases, from 3D rendering to scientific simulation and machine learning, among some of them. So the
Huh.
idea is to break down a big workload into small tiny functions, and those functions would run on these gaming systems, and maybe someday smartphones also. That would be the dream, to have your smartphone compute for, some scientist or
Yeah.
engineer or innovator, and you are
Yeah.
getting paid for it. So you're sleeping and your
Yeah.
smartphone is making money for you, because it is a powerful computer.
Yeah. And well, that wasn't the question I was asking, but that's actually
Oh yeah.
very interesting. Because
Okay.
yeah, like that's again, like back to Silicon Valley, in the TV show, that's what Richard Hendricks is trying to do, which is he creates the Pied Piper app, and he tries to get people, instead of compute, he tries to do it with storage initially, and then he moves to
Yeah.
compute. So that's interesting. But I was talking more about like your company size. Like, do you think um do you think it is possible to have like a company, and forget numbers, like do you think it's possible for you to like hit like true scale without needing, like, okay, let me reframe the question. Do you think you'd be able to do what you want to do with like 10 times less people that like Amazon Web Services or GCP would be able to do? Just a total hypothetical.
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
One of the biggest, you can say, human resources that go into, like if you have a centralized infrastructure,
Hmm.
uh, so you need to have a lot of human resources in different locations.
Yeah.
Uh, let's say you are in Belgium, you are in
Hmm.
Canada, you are in India, you have set up large data centers.
Mm.
So that requires, a lot of humans
Yeah.
there. So in our case, it's a marketplace model. We don't have any inventory, just like Airbnb and
Yeah.
Uber. We
Yeah.
don't hold any inventory, and that actually helps us in, going in areas where even AWS is not present.
Mm.
Uh, but there are crypto miners who are there. So
Hmm.
that actually helps us get to better scale, uh, while being cost efficient, both at the you can say, at the infrastructure level and at the human resource level. So definitely yes.
Wow. No, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, if they're able to pull this off, which is a decentralized like compute company, they should require like 10x less, as much, like 10x less as much, people basically. And yeah, that's what I was just like confirming. Um, okay, that's amazing. I have to say, this has been fascinating. And I'm gonna do some thinking about like whatever I learned today. So I appreciate that. Is there anything that you'd like to share, or you know before we end for today?
uh, if it is for young, engineers or
Yeah.
scientists who are, getting into entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
uh, I would say, I'll just share, few learnings. One of the biggest one is, when we come from that background, we are actually obsessed with perfection, and that actually backfires. It happened with me also,
Hmm.
uh, because we are obsessed with, getting things done the right way. But
Hmm.
the problem is, the market is moving so fast that by the time you achieve your perfection, someone has already outrun you. So the better way is faster iterations. So if you can have 10 iterations instead of one iteration in the same period of time, you will win. You will be, and get out there in the market, very early, because customer feedback is the key to, I would say, everything. When we started, we came up with this very simple dream that, hey, we want to build a decentralized computing network. But to really, convert that dream into a commercial entity, or a business, it's important to go deep in one vertical and understand the nuanced needs. So that's why we went with machine learning and understood their problems. And Gaurav's background actually helped, because he's the user himself. So being a user yourself is actually a massive advantage, because you get a feel or intuition about the needs and the product that an outsider can't get, and you tap into the community mindset. You talk in their lingo. You don't come across as a salesperson, because this is a thing that we all have felt, being engineers, scientists, and developers. We don't want to talk to salespeople. We just have this weird superiority about ourselves. I'm saying it out loud there. We all have that.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
so the better way to approach a developer is to approach them as a developer. That's it. They respect that. They respect the lingo. They respect the nuanced, understanding of their field. So, and that only comes when you are really, deep into something that you are built up. So you're actually building for yourself. That
Okay.
helps.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Thanks. I
Saurabh.
really enjoyed it.
No, I really appreciate you sharing this, all of, this information and perspective, because this is very interesting. There's a lot to think about from today. So thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.